Good evening and welcome everyone. Work session tonight, Rutherford County School Board. First order of business, the Pledge of Allegiance, led tonight by Board Member Oy Young. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Go down and look at number 4 on your agenda, and need to get anything moved around there for tomorrow night. If not, number 5, the approval of the consent agenda. Any problems there? Anything you want moved for our meeting tomorrow night? If not, we'll move on then. Number 6, we may or may not have visitors tomorrow night. And Mr. Director, if you pick it up at 7, I'd appreciate it. Okay, 7. Mr. Tollett told me today that they plan to be here Wednesday night. So this Eagleville land judging team and the FFA chapter won the national chapter Gold Star Award, which is really good. So, and then as far as I know, Sickle High Boys is supposed to come also. They're cross country. So we look forward to that tomorrow night. And the Sickle High School Health Science Academy is a CTE program, and they'll be doing a presentation for you from tomorrow night. Got some really good connections through the Chamber of Commerce and through business and industry to stuff. That's a good program, so you'll get a chance to see that. And 9, I think we got some visitors there. Right. Principal Creasy and baseball coach Craig Revis will be here to talk to us a bit about the lights at Sickle High School on the baseball field, and Mr. Clardy will have complete information on bids and whatever, and we're going to make some sort of decision, I hope, will be made on this tomorrow night. Now, number 10. Number 10. This is insurance proceeds, general purpose school budget. This amendment takes $388,199 in insurance recovery funds that we have received or will receive for the Blackman Wrestling Building, $336,048, and the Riverdale Concession Stand, $52,151, and budgets these funds so that the rebuilding and replacement projects can proceed. Recommend approval of the motion is to amend $336,048 in insurance recovery funds for the Blackman Wrestling Building related expenditures and to amend $52,151 and the insurance recovery funds for the Riverdale Concession Stand and related expenditures as presented. Probably need to talk a little bit about this one. We did contact County Technical Services. There's going to do the work at the Blackman Wrestling Building. We'll have to issue an RFP, right, based on what they said. So you'd have to put it out for bid to do it. They had gotten some agreements from some parents, and it was really, really good price to do some of it. But because of the amount, they're saying we can't not legally do it. So we're going to have to put that out probably in RFP. You want to fill in anything there, Mr. Clardy, or anything about the concession stand or anything at Riverdale?
We own these buildings, even though they weren't originally built through the school. So we are the insured. We have the insured interest, and those funds came to us. And since they are, even if we transfer them to the individual school, you would still have to go out for bid and all that. We were hoping maybe by engaging a construction manager, we might be able to work around some of that. But the CTAS ruling clearly says the base, we could award a construction management contract through as a professional service, but the underlying jobs would have to be bid if they're over the bid criteria.
Also, just want to say that my department is working with them, helping them get the stuff together that they need. Joseph Binkley has donated his time to help them draw this building up. A site engineer, Mr. Hooper with Barge Cawthon, has donated his time to help them do the site plan because there's some relocation of some storm sewers and different things have to be done. So this thing is running into a lot more cost than was anticipated, and since we're having to deal with all of this new law and go through the bid process and all of that, that's probably doubling the price on a lot of this stuff. So with my department, it's getting to be a real issue because everyone that's coming in doesn't have the money to do the building. So we're going to either have to start breaking this stuff down in steps or not approving them until they actually have the money for the funds. So that's something that the board has to consider. We have gotten a lot of deals on buildings throughout the system over the years by the way we used to do it, where they could get by on a shoestring budget by getting volunteers and donations and all of that. But now that we're having to go through the bid laws and take bids on everything, that just drives the cost up because the bidders have to be licensed if they're over $25,000, and it's just a lot of red tape.
The $52,000 for the concession stand, did that cover the cleanup costs we had? Because we had some commercial cleanup before we could go in. Some of your guys even make repairs on that one.
The rebuilding, that is, that's the content, I believe, isn't it? And the cleanup and the demolition was right at $40,000.
Okay.
So we have subbed the parts out because they're less than $10,000. Setting the trusses, putting the roof on, which we had on bid back here. Our electricians are redoing the electrical. Our plumbers are redoing the plumbing. And then we're subbing the painting out and the metal soffit and stuff. So we're getting close to that. But I believe the estimate that they finally submitted back to us was close to $150,000. And so when you take the $100,000 off of it, then that's what we're left with. So we're expecting that we can get the cleanup and our stuff put back the way we're doing it for about $100,000. So about $50,000 is having to come out of the regular budget.
Mr. Clardy mentioned the positive side, having the booster groups handle some of these building arrangements. We've also, over the years, seen the negative side, where something gets started, doesn't get finished, something gets started and the fundraising just totally falls apart, and y'all have had to make the decision either to take it over or to let an unfinished facility sit on site. So it's a double-edged sword for us when the booster groups also.
Before Mr. Blair, and he has something he wants to add here, when a group, a school, comes to us and wants to build something at no cost to the board, a outbuilding, if you will, Mr. Clardy, if I'm not mistaken, you do assist them with your expertise or people in your office as far as advising them maybe on some various things, but no money. Is that a fair statement to make?
That is, although occasionally the board has given direction to maybe help them on some electrical or something simple without spending a lot of money, because we usually end up having to pay for the meter fees and those types of things to get the power in their name. But it's usually something that we can do, and it's something that's simple and doesn't cost a lot of money if we do participate anyway in that.
We don't check and see if they have the money to do that when they make that request, do we? I'm certain you don't do that.
Well, we asked them the question on the form that we made up.
Okay.
But we also rely on their estimate sometimes.
Right.
Which is, you normally have an unrealistic idea of what something's going to cost, particularly when they get into the bid side of it. So their budgets are usually not any good. They were up until we had to go with getting bids. So it just costs so much more. You know how costs have risen. So it's just kind of hard to track that.
I know we have some problems at more than one or two places around the county with the situation as you just expressed it. I'm aware of that, as the board is, I guess. And I don't want to be unsympathetic or act like I don't care, because I think we do care. Now that I've said that, when they come to us and they make a request and the paperwork is right, we routinely approve that as a board. We're also making another statement there. We're telling the public that it's not in our budget. And we're telling the county commission, we're not building a building for X school out there. And it's hard to back up from that when you've already done that and you've said that. And I don't know where to go from here on this, but we're going to have to do something as far as because they're not finishing the buildings. I mean, we've got 2 or 3 that aren't started yet that we've approved, and we've got at least one major building, as you well know, because you and I just walked through it, that is terrific, but it's not ready for occupancy, and I don't know when they're going to be able to finish it. They run out of money.
Right. And I would just recommend that they either lay out a plan so everyone is informed up front that it's going to take a while. But as you know, when you stretch those things out, you have a total change of parents. A lot of times interest is lost in it, and somebody has what they think is a better idea, and they want to go in a different direction. The leaders do. So, but on the other hand, if we know up front that it's going to be a 3-year project, and they're going to lay it out in terms that they can handle it and make sure it's paid for as they go along, then I could also live with that. Either that, or we're going to have to just say, you got to have the money, engineering's going to do the estimate on it, and they're going to give you the bottom line, and if you don't have that money, don't start the building.
Mr. Blair, I'm sorry.
Well, basically saying the same thing that you did, Mr. Chairman, just that I would like to see the money in place, even if it's going to take a little time to do it, at least have the money in place so they don't have a stagnant project out there. And before we approve, and I assume that we have to approve the reconstruction of that wrestling building, that those bids are in, and we know the money that we have in hand from the insurance and what it's going to take to build it and what they will have on hand. I would hate to see another stagnant building go up where it's half finished and it sits there for a couple of years unoccupied. So I would certainly like for us to do our due diligence and make sure all of these things are lined up for it to be a successful project.
Board, other comments? Okay, number 11.
11, I'll be doing.
I'm sorry, Ms. Sandy.
I'm sorry. I thought someone was going to say something. This amendment only basically recognizes the revenue in our budget. we won't do anything other than, the amendment is no authorization to proceed with anything.
Okay. Go ahead, number 11.
Number 11, I'll do tomorrow night. We have a little more time with the school's report card. Looking at that. Insurance, I think they have got some information, Mr. Sandvig or Dr. Warren.
We met with our Cigna and our Willis consultants, and well, Cigna, our vendor, last Friday. Tentatively, we are looking for the budget at building in an 8% rate increase on insurance effective January of 2019. That's initial pass-through.
Comments from anybody on insurance?
They actually canceled the January meeting, right?
Director's update.
I gave you some documents tonight, which we'll be sharing with Health and Ed, part of it. This one, first one is the attendance today. Interestingly enough, the attendance was 95.94%. So really good attendance today. I guess tired of staying home or something, but that's there. But anyway, you can kind of see when you saw, well, I've been sharing this with you all along, but when you actually designed your 5-year building plan, it was in October, and it's just more effective if I can bring them current numbers compared to the current time frame. So I'm comparing to the 5th month, which for us will end the 31st because of the snow days. So it compares back, and the growth is 1,040. It's been around 1,050, a little above, a little below, and changes daily. In that, you have 10 schools. You could actually take out Rocky Fork because they would have growth, certainly 100% growth since they're new occupants. Of the schools that are 4% or more have a little arrow to the right. And they're clustered in some areas which shows up. But once again, kind of at the very bottom, the per grade, your high school again and middle school is the ones that's growing. So the 400 high school with 4 grades, 100 per grade across our district. Middle school is 124 students per grade across our district. And of course, your elementary school includes kindergarten through 5th. So you actually have 6 grades there. And they're coming at 46.3 per grade. So that's just for overall growth of 2.32%. And the money kind of comes from the state for growth if they do not change it at what percent? 2%? Something like that?
It's pretty well guaranteed anything over 1.5, okay. 1.2, but they have not moved to absolute full funding. But
Mr. Odom, I'm a little surprised that Smyrna Primary and Cedar Grove.
I don't understand Smyrna Primary.
You know, neither one of those facilities have subdivisions growing up around them. So
I think hers, Mr. Duke and I talked about that. He'd been down there today. And there must be something going on in that federally subsidized housing. It's down off Rock Springs in there because some of the students are getting in. You can kind of tell from free reduced numbers and stuff that they're coming from areas like that. So I don't know whether that is expanded or families are taking in another family or what's going on. Yes, sir. But in fact, I talked to the principal about it. She didn't know either, but we are seeing high growth there in both of those.
Those are dramatic.
This may be one of our sales points for let's go ahead and finish Rocky Fork Elementary. Yeah, so so if you kind of look at the second sheet, I have taken my spreadsheet and make it do some calculating also and put those same numbers in so you very quickly see elementary, middle, and high, and you kind of take a look at it. When you take a look at the middle schools in the south and east, which would be Blackman, Rockville, Christian, Whitworth, that's a flat 4%. That's quite a bit higher than our 2.32 over there. The middle schools overall is 3.4%. So again, that was our highest per grade, certainly the largest for our district. High schools 2.8%. The Laverne Elementary clustering, except for Laverne Lake, is added a few more, is not up much, and the middle cluster in Laverne is not up much. Now, when you see a negative number by middle school, please remember we moved into Rocky Fork. So when you look at Rock Springs, you look at Smyrna Middle, the negative is because we relocated students compared to, a year ago. So it's not that students moved away, they just went to Rocky Fork. And you'll see Rocky Fork next year because we grandfathered 8th graders. You will see that number go up, I think, significantly next year at Rocky Fork, but it should give us a little growth room in a lot of those schools in that area on the northern end for middle, as more students then move out and go to Rocky Fork. Now, the one catch there might be Laverne Middle, because that rezoning really did not impact Laverne Middle when we did that. So the third sheet is the 5-year plan that you approved back in October. But I'm just trying to give them some basis for why we selected what we have in that, have included in our building plan. They seem to understand it better if you can show them some growth and numbers to go with it. Questions or comments or anything on that before we take it up there tonight?
Board? Anything? Okay.
The other little piece that I'll just kind of tell you about, the state has decided to do a state-type evaluation on pre-K teachers this year, all over the state of Tennessee. And the answer in doing this, the way they're doing this is teachers have to pick out a certain number of students in their classroom, and they have to video them and show what they're doing to teach them, materials, that sort of thing, because you don't have a lot of tests for pre-K kids, to do it. And then they have to video them later in the year and show the growth, because they're trying to do some kind of a growth measure for teachers teaching those students. I know Linda Gilbert and some others in districts were really concerned, directors were, where kids move a lot, that you might not have the same kids to video. But here's the catch. The catch is, in order to get all of these pre-K teachers evaluated, they turned around, Mr. Young, your unfunded mandate, they turned around and said, we're not going to furnish evaluators or pay for evaluators. You're going to have to pick out evaluators from your district to evaluate teachers in other districts. They couldn't do it in Rutherford County based upon how many pre-Ks you have. We're a large district. So you're looking in terms of, how many was it, 18, something like that? 18 teachers. So they've got to sit down and look at these videos, hours of videos of somebody teaching somewhere else and doing that, and try to come up with a score for them. That's not fair to those teachers. There's no pay, nothing for it. So unless you oppose or something else, what we're probably going to try to do is to probably build in some, we'll do some substitute days. They have to take a test before they do this too. If you want to get out of it, just don't pass that test, I guess. But they have to take a test before they do it. We're thinking about bringing them up here to our labs. And we got people in this building doing it too. Mr. Zago's got his staff doing it, but his staff can't do it by itself because of the number we have to do. So what we're going to do is probably bring them up here to the lab, furnish a substitute at school for up to 2 to 3 days for them to do their training and then do some of their evaluation, so they don't have to go home with their own kids and all and spend every night looking at video somewhere else. In fact, they aren't volunteering to do it. Do you understand why?
Absolutely, I understand why.
Well, one of the issues that you're dealing with is the minimum of 22 hours to complete one of these processes per person. So you're looking at 22 hours of minimum for evaluating the portfolios that they're mandating for us to do. But in order to become a portfolio evaluator, you have to take a state assessment, and that assessment's done online, and you have to pass that assessment in order to evaluate these that we're being required to provide by state policy. And they sent me the policy to make sure I understood the policy was there for me to provide these teachers. So we tried very hard to get teachers to do, and we said, it's nice to be on the inside and know what you're being evaluated on and how that's being done. But we still didn't get very many volunteers. So in order to get this, I think we're going to have to provide some compensation of their time, that 22 hours plus they have to complete that assessment. So the 3 sub-days for them, at least 2 up here where they'll be spending time watching the videos, because we can work together. It's a first-time process for everyone, and then that way we're being comparable, and we also are understanding that working together in that process. But we're also giving some time to take that assessment as well.
I think there is some value of looking at other people's teaching, pick up ideas and some things like that. But you're also, when you bring them up here, you're pulling them away from their kids that they're supposed to be teaching. But then the state's talking about doing PK this year, K next year, first grade the year after, and then second grade.
We're doing PK kindergarten this year, and then next year we pick up first grade. It's mandated, already there. And then the following year, we'll have to pick up second grade, which is mandated as well.
Did this come from the Department of Education?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So what's the
So this
penalty?
is not a legislative initiative, this is just something they dreamed up in their little heads, correct?
You know, it's hard to get answers. I don't think it came from the legislature. I don't think it did. I don't know whether the state board could have passed it, I'm not sure.
Maybe it's time to rebel.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. What's the penalty if we don't do this?
Right. That's my consideration as well. What is the penalty?
Their standard penalty is funding, but I don't know whether that would apply here or not.
You have a lot of pre-Ks that they're funding and things like that as well.
Unbelievable.
We just need to figure out which.
You know, the cheapest way for us would be the subs. There's no question about that. The teachers aren't getting extra compensation for the fact of having to do that. But anyway, it's just, this is where we are.
Do we die on this hill?
It should be on Capitol Hill.
Well, but it's not, because it's not legislative. It seems to be from the department. You know, do we take a stand here?
You know, and it could be that we need to see how it works this year. I mean, I don't think you're not talking about a huge cost for here to do the subs, to do the 18 this year, because we're using people in our office too. We don't have to have subs with it.
And because we're dealing with such a small population.
Right, but as we look at it this year, and then we can get reports back, was this valuable to you? Is this valuable to the teachers that we're scoring for to help them improve? What is the picture here? I kind of viewed this year as a little bit of a, I wasn't eager to participate, but maybe in some ways an experiment to see how valuable and how our teachers felt about it. But I just thought the state should have kicked in money. You know, we started RTI, you remember, about 3 years ago, and I think the governor's going to have it in his budget this year, but we spent about 3 years of money on a state mandate for RTI that they didn't put in at all. But this is so typical of what they do.
Remember Senator Ketron's comments to us when we were with the city that when the legislature is not in session, that the bureaucrats are working overtime at the Department of Education. And I'd be my guess that that's exactly what's going on here. I don't know if we can beat this or not, but and not do it. But I would say that if we want to protest in some way or try to get this undone, if that's possible, and I have a feeling that it's not, but if it is, the way to go is through the legislature.
It's been going on for well over
Yeah.
a year.
Yeah.
I mean, I was hearing about a year ago, as directors, we were questioning, you know, how do you have consistency when you're going to have hundreds of people out there evaluating hundreds of other people? And so I guess the answer to that was the test. That's supposed to, but I think you'll get really variations in the process. How somebody looks at how someone else teaches and tries to come up with an effect score for that teacher. I just felt uncomfortable about the process and what I know about evaluations and testing. But anyway,
Did I understand that the teachers were going to be videoed?
you have to video what the teachers are to do. And there's another item on here about this software up here, that in this number 10 on your thing. No, it wasn't 10. It's the other one up, which one? 17, consent agenda. The thing about it, what teachers are doing now, they're taking their iPads or something and taping the kids in their room. They're doing it themselves, having to then go upload it to the state website. So they're spending a lot of time, every teacher is, uploading what they're seeing their kids to do so that they can build their, I'm going to use the term portfolio for themselves, you know, to do that. So they're spending a lot of time.
They're filming children and sending it to the state?
Yes.
And they've gone through and got parental permission?
Because the teachers, they're filming, that the teachers are having fun with the kids in their classroom. And then they upload it, but see, a teacher from another district is gonna look at that video and then make some judgment of how good our teacher was in that. And our teachers are supposed to look at it and say, how good that
I could have
teacher
swore there was some kind of federal
Yeah, this is just
protection
really-
there for child safety in order.
It's not a public thing, but in some ways it is, I guess, because everybody that's gonna be viewing it would have to pass the state test, would have to do that, and I'm not the legal mind here, Jeff, so, but they probably tried to cover that some, I don't know. I mean, this is just where we are, and rather than us just coming up with some sub-days, that I want y'all to know what we're dealing with.
Well, absolutely, and thank you for sharing it with us. We're doing what we can, and to have a plan in place for our teachers to not be working for free, that's appropriate. And so the plan that you put forward, I as a board member, I support what you're doing to take care of our faculty members and try and execute this unreasonable expectation. But I'm also, as a board member, going to suggest that in between this meeting and our next meeting, that we task our attorney, Mr. Jeff Reed, to help us draft a resolution that strongly opposes this program. Because you're also indicating to us that this program is going to go from this pre-K and kindergarten into first grade, into second grade, which means that we're adding more assessments to a system and we're using video technology. We need to be on the record opposing this.
Senator Ketron is introducing legislation this year to put a moratorium on assessments. Is this getting under the wire so his legislation does not?
They've been working on this for about 3 years, and it's basically been building a plane as it's flying. We finally got some good information on what's being required of that.
The state doesn't tell you to spend money, they don't tell you how to do it. They just say, based on, count your number of pre-K teachers, and you have to have one for every how many?
I have to provide them one evaluator per 10 teachers that we have.
So that's how they came up with the number Rutherford County had to provide.
If you will permit me, let's put off further discussion on this topic until tomorrow night, and you can make that motion tomorrow night when we can actually vote, if that's what you wish to do, or something like it.
I would agree, though, that this definitely merits more conversation, because I think this ties into some of our...
Well, I've got words to describe this, but I shouldn't say them over the microphone. Number 4, are you okay? You all right? Okay. Thank you so much for the good news. Ms. Moore, anything on the legislature?
I will say for tomorrow.
Okay. Mr. Holliday?
I will pass for tomorrow as well.
Okay, we have number 16, which was added, and you have a brochure there, and thanks to Mr. Evans and anybody else that may have contributed to this. The corrections and some additions, I guess, for Mr. Bennett to use in superintendent search, and we need to, well, maybe we need to have Mr. Evans, maybe he needs to comment.
Would you like me to come to the podium or do it from
yeah, come on to the podium.
James Evans, come on down.
There won't be a song tonight.
Yeah, did you have a guitar? No, he's not. I've heard him sing.
I always sit in the crowd at church, so.
Well, that's a good thing.
All right. Well, as we discussed last night, I was asked to update the district profile information, which is in this column of your brochure. Any dates that I saw that were out of date, so anything that said 2012 now says 2018. I did not do anything with this selection criteria. That's something for the board to discuss, as we talked about last night. And I also updated the community section, which is in this column of your brochure. Mr. Bennett and his staff updated this section of the current board members. Otherwise, that is the only thing that I believe that we've touched. I did notice something, and I just wanted to bring it to your attention because this was in the last brochure. that under the sections that says the position, it's this short section here, it does say that a master's degree in education with a preference for a doctorate degree. I know that some board members had made comments recently that that was not necessarily something they were going to put in there. I just wanted to bring that to your attention, but we didn't add that. It was already there from the last brochure. I can take any questions you have.
Well, of course, it only says a preference for the doctorate, which, and I think that was the question that was kind of running around, wasn't it, that we were being asked also by the press.
Exactly.
It's not a requirement.
Right, but I just wanted to bring it to your attention that it does say that in the brochure.
Thank you.
Do we have a preference? Because I don't.
By policy, we do have a preference.
Are you searching for something to read to me, or?
Well, yeah, there are 3 items in our policy that pertain to the director's evaluation, the director's job description, and the search criteria. And in one of those 3, it has the exact same language as you see there, that it is a master's degree in education with a preference for a doctorate degree. I can provide that if we need to.
I don't see, from a recruiting standpoint or legality standpoint, that when it's just stated as a preference, that we really need to be overly concerned with it, leaving the language as is. Certainly, if Mr. Holliday says that it's a policy, then we probably need to. We don't have time to change policy, and I don't know that it's necessary. Again, with most job descriptions and things you see posted, when an employer refers to preferred, very often that means too, well, hey, we're also willing to look at the equivalent of experience that we would equate to, being the same as having that level of a degree. So
I can't speak to the legality of that, but I'm sure Mr. Reed could if need be.
The way this reads from a legal standpoint, you're not locking yourself into hiring someone with a doctorate degree. So I think what you said is completely correct.
just leave it alone.
Well, if Mr. Holliday says that it's in policy, then he very likely is right. I think if I were off in Kingsport and I looked at this, maybe I'm wrong. You all are telling me that I'm wrong, which is fine. But if I read that, I'd say, uh-oh, they want a doctorate. It doesn't say so, but they want a doctorate. Maybe that's the wrong interpretation for me to have. Perhaps. I don't know. I do know my own feeling, and I have no preference at all. None. But that's Ms. Moore may be right, but we need to just leave it alone. But open for discussion, folks.
I'll just go back to and my personal preference is we don't need it in there, but I'll go back to the last search we had. If I'm not mistaken, Mr. Odom, good example. He didn't have a doctor. And I believe 2 others didn't need it. I think we just had 2 candidates that the SBA brought that had doctorates. Just like Mr. Reed, we haven't broken no laws, because if we did, we hired Mr. Odom without a doctor. My deal is it doesn't make any difference to me. I don't see any reason to have it in there.
I've located it now. Board Policy 5.802, Qualifications. Item 1, a professional educator's license. Item 2, a master's degree in education with preference for a doctorate degree. Item 3, 3 years of successful experience in school administration. Item 4, such other qualifications as the board deems desirable. So really all we've done here is just reflect in this statement the position, the items that are in our board policy 5.802.
Well, if they apply, I'm just afraid it might keep somebody from applying. Maybe not. I may be seeing evil there where there is none. I'm okay, I guess, with it. If I had a choice, I'd take it out. But I don't appear to have a choice, so okay? And I think if they call or they apply through the Tennessee School Board Association, Mr. Bennett is going to tell them that that's a preference and that the last 3 directors did not have a doctorate degree, and that should state whatever it is you want it to state. I think Ms. Moore is probably right.
And probably, since TSBA does so many of the policy manuals across the state, that language is probably in the majority of our sister boards, and they probably, and I suspect most of those directors do not have a doctorate either.
Well, the purpose of this is to give this to Mr. Bennett for his use, and we're going to have to decide that tomorrow night. So there are other, well, we don't have any changes right now that Mr. Evans hasn't already made.
Yes, sir. And so the section that says the position, the only thing I changed in there was the date to July 1st, 2018. Under the selection criteria, I made no changes. That's the board's prerogative. Or the application process, the only thing that I changed in that was the date for February 23rd, which is the deadline the board adopted last night. But I do have the document on my computer, so if the board decides to change something, I can make the changes on the fly so that we can get it to Mr. Bennett the very next morning.
Board, do you? Well, I think we're all going to read this more than once, probably tonight at some point, between tonight and tomorrow night, and there may be something you may want to add or something you may want to change. I haven't read all of it either. I read yesterday's, but I haven't read the changes, so whatever you think. There's no mention here, is that of perhaps coming on board a little early. We just gave him that date, something to work with, didn't we? We don't want it on here. Board? Thank you, Mr. Evans, for your constant good works. General discussion by board members.
Mr. Chairman, I assume that Mr. Clardy would be available to talk about the proposal for the Sickle lights. I mean, this is our work session, and I want to work on that before we face a vote tomorrow night, but we didn't have any report on that.
Mr. Clardy, you want to go over the material at this point?
We, as you know, we bid those lights as LEDs in the contract for Sickle High School Edition. The ad alternate for those lights came back at, I believe, $186,000. Then I got another independent contractor to look at them, and the LEDs at that point were around $210,000 to $220,000. So the company that went out and originally looked at the lights and started helping budgeting with them is Musco Lighting, which is a huge sports lighting contractor and supplier. We have $149,000 price from them. It's an estimate, but I would assume that if we bid these things out, then they would be bidding on them. Plus the other one had the contractor's markup on them, which this would be going directly to the subcontractor. That for LED lighting. On the if you went with the HID or the metal halide lighting, that would be at $109,400. Now, I think that you could probably pick up that $40,000 pretty quickly and continue to save money on power by going with the LED lights. And so if you're serious about this and plan on doing it, then I would go with the LED lighting instead of the halide. This will put the entire field at the required foot candles, which I think is 35. I didn't bring that with me. I'm a little bit rusty on that. It's been a while. But I'll have that tomorrow night so we can discuss that. But I believe for around $150,000, we can probably get this done with LED if that's what you're interested in doing.
And we haven't done any light meter readings at any other facility anywhere in our county. Is that correct?
No, sir, we have not.
Okay.
Mr. Creasy and Mr. Revis, I know I've already told you this, are coming at my request because of their frequent emails and their feeling, which is rapidly approaching desperation. They're afraid they're not going to have a field to safely play ball on. I asked Mr. Reed if he's called upon tomorrow night to express whatever legal opinion he might have on it. I didn't ask him what it was, so I can't report that. That's Mr. Reed's business. But we've got a problem here, and I think we're at a point where we either need to fix it or not fix it. And then if we don't fix it, then we're going to have another path to follow. We're already late. His season opens. I don't have a date for the season opener, but it's always the first week in March. And I assume he will have practice games and whatnot at night out there sometime between now and then. I don't know that, though. I do not know that. But, and the TWSAA, of course, will play part of Spring Fling there, as they play at every ball field, as far as I know, in Rutherford County. I think they play at all of them. So that's where we are. So I felt like we need to hear it from the coach and from the principal directly, rather than going through Mr. Clardy or myself or others. And you can ask them whatever you want to ask.
How did the lighting issue come to bear?
Well, you're asking me for them. You're asking me?
I mean, who brought it to the attention of the...
Coach Revis. He brought it. I don't know if he communicated with Mr. Clardy or not. I don't know. He did communicate with me.
So did he do a candle measurement himself, or
Yes.
have it done?
We had the company that gave us this $149,000 estimate do it, but I also went out, our head lead electrician went out with our meters and measured it, and they were very, very close to the same measurement.
Do you have a fear that the rest of the ball fields are in the same predicament?
Well, there's a great possibility of that. I don't know. But here's the thing. If they are, and this one needs it, then they need it.
Well, we'll have set a precedent. We'll have set a precedent.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
We'll have set a precedent.
Oh, yes, that's what I'm saying. So, but, I don't know what the liability is, or...
I want I want to remind the board that this is based on the Tennessee Secondary Schools Athletic Association lighting standards that were adopted in March of 2016. So we didn't build this school necessarily deficient. That the bar moved in March of 2016, and it moved to the same standards of NCAA broadcast for athletic events. And so the TSSAA lighting standards now match the same standards for broadcast lighting for an NCAA baseball field. And it also says in this lighting standards manual that a set of lights is anticipated for something like a 35-year lifespan. And I'm not an attorney, but if you install lights and you're told that they're going to have a 35-year lifespan, but then you move the bar, I think it gives reason for discussion.
It's my understanding that the broadcast follows the NC or the collegiate, which is a much higher standard than the secondary school. So it's at close to 100 from the information that I saw, and I researched it, and I believe actually Mr. Odom may recall this, I don't know, but we looked, and the 2009 standards were the same.
Yeah, I don't think I'm not sure.
It didn't change. It changed before that, so it may have changed more closer. I couldn't find anything else any farther back, so it might have changed somewhere after the 2004, or 2003, when that was ready. So, is that the one that I handed out to you?
No.
Not.
So 2009 standards are the same as in the 2018 standard, lighting standards are the same?
2016 was when they were set.
Okay, so it changed, it did change in 16?
It didn't.
Did not?
From 2009, from what we saw on the report.
If that was correct, you know, internet's always correct, right? If that's
Well, we actually looked at the two of the same reports. The one that I believe he has, and they were the same in those two reports. One of them was dated at a gathering from 2009, and then the other one was dated at this gathering in 2016, the group that set the standard for those. So that's the way I understand it.
So in order for us to be in compliance to these standards, we have to change, right?
Yes, sir. Now, I know that when those lights were put in, that they had a real struggle with it. If y'all recall, at the time, we had problems with people coming down the road being blinded and not being able to see cars. So I think some of those were changed a little bit. And also the neighborhood, people in the new houses back over there behind the middle school and also the high school complained, and they were designed with shades on them that held down the light pollution, although it was not supposed to direct or redirect the light away from the field. It just kept it from polluting the area around it. And Musco is basically the standard. I mean, they kind of set the standard for the lighting, so they understand it, and they looked at it, and they undoubtedly do not feel that they can just redirect some of those and get more light on the field.
Okay, Mr. Clardy, and I guess I'm still confused because I thought you had said earlier that the TSSAA standards did change. in 2016. So, but you're saying now they did not?
No, I didn't. Mr. Holliday said that at a meeting one night.
Okay, so do we know that they've changed since we built Sickle baseball field to begin with, or not?
I could not find anything back past 2009, so I don't know.
But if we're basing our concerns or a position that we've got to fix this because it's standards, does that not then make us obligated to do an analysis of all of our other high school baseball field lights as well?
Well, I think that if it's a liability there, then it's a liability at other schools if there's an issue with it.
I don't know how much you want to trust my judgment on this. Maybe I was in a slightly unique situation because of broadcasting so many years on baseball and softball games, and football too, of course, on WGNS radio. And I've attended, I don't know, 2 or 3 dozen games, I guess, at Eagleville, and broadcast it at one time or another everywhere, I guess, in the county. And I don't know that there's a problem, but I'll have to say this, and I know I said this before. When I walked up there to Sickle baseball, set up a table and so forth with my broadcast partner, and I looked out over the Sickle field, and this was the first year they were there, I knew that they had a problem. It is obvious that they have a problem. It's not a couple of foot candles or a dark corner. It's a problem. Now, what Ms. Moore just said a minute ago, if we've got a problem somewhere else, I don't know where it exists, but Mr. Hodge made this comment the very first night we discussed this. We may have to test everybody's field. And I think, didn't you get a request or something from somebody to please?
No, I talked to one of the coaches, just asked him if it was a problem, and he said it was a problem.
I don't know how much television coverage has got to do with any of this, or our obligations there, or whatever. I'm just concerned about the athletes, and as are you, that they come into Sickle High School and play there, and the visitors, which are, of course, a large number of them are our students as well. And I think if you, well, can't do it now, obviously, but the field is noticeably darker than any other field, frankly, that I've ever seen in high school baseball at night.
Let me suggest this. Maybe this will help out with this dilemma. What if we fix this one, went around and evaluated the other fields, checked them all out, and then made some type of arrangement and capital improvement to do maybe 2 of them a year or something to get them up. And then at that point, I would also suggest that maybe we get risk management to start looking at them. I mean, if that's that's the issue we're having, maybe it's a risk management problem.
The ones at Laverne and Smyrna will take 10 years and be twice as expensive before we get to them.
A concern I have with capital projects, as Gary knows, we're tight every year. We have more projects of the type of projects we have been doing historically. We already have more of those. We're fighting to avoid a backlog just in those, and if we sidetrack a third, a half a cent of property tax to these, we'll fall further behind in the other side. So there's that to consider as we're talking.
It's not I have no desire whatsoever to cut off any discussion whatsoever. And you know, I like for everybody to be heard. And with that said, we do have a meeting that we want to attend at the courthouse at 5:30, and
I'll make it quick.
oh, well, that's fine. I want to get us on the road here. Go ahead.
Had a request from the administration at Smyrna High School to rename the swimming pool the Tony Trumpower Aquatic Center, and would like to have the board take that under consideration in the near future. They would like to do it at a basketball game here before we can get this on the agenda, but if there's a favorable response from the board and, of course, the director of schools, then they could possibly go ahead and do the dedication on the 9th, and we actually formally do the vote on the 15th if there was a positive response from the board either tonight or at the next meeting, and just under general discussion.
Okay, so you're not saying anything tonight necessarily. You don't.
Well, I mean, this is.
We can't vote tonight anyway.
Right. This is not. We can't vote tomorrow night either. But if I could get a kind of a head count from the board just from their conversation that, hey, think it's a great idea or not, that I could, with Mr. Odom's approval, allow them to proceed.
What inhibits us from voting tomorrow night?
I assume the timeline, no?
It's late to add it now, so we usually like to get 72 hours.
Right. Well, again, I'm not going to ask for a vote, but maybe through general discussion, I could find out whether or not there's a favorable mentality towards.
I don't remember when he wasn't coaching either at Thurman Francis or Smyrna. Right. He has been there and shown total dedication to that job, and I don't know about the rest of you. Until this fall, I had never met him. Which is odd, but I was very impressed with his interest in swimming and in swimmers, and in Smyrna High School in particular.
Well, the neat thing is he's the only program that utilizes the pool for wellness and have taught hundreds and hundreds of students to swim where they might never have learned to swim.
Our county athletic director told me that, said he is, I can't remember exactly how he worded it, but he said these pools are being used exactly like they were intended to be used by Smyrna High School and by Coach Trumpower. And that was Mr. Tackett's words. I'm paraphrasing, but I'm pretty sure. Is there any words of discouragement on this? And I have no problem, whatever you want to say. We all right with that? I believe you can
Tell them that they should get a favorable response.
I would think so at a future vote. And when did they want to do it?
February the 9th.
February 9, so we will have a meeting between now and then. Okay.
Well, actually, we don't. We have one on the 15th. We have a special call, I think, February 1st, and then we...
February 1st is policy, right?
But yeah, it's a special call for...
Okay.
But then we only have two in February. Is it 13th and 15th? So we won't be able to vote till...
We're going to vote positive for this after it happens. You'll have to take the sign
that would be my hope, or somebody will be taking whitewash.
You have to paint over the sign.
Yeah.
Well, if that's legal, that's fine with me. Mr. Clardy, did you?
I just wanted to backtrack a little bit. What if I tomorrow check and see how long it would take to get an evaluation of all the high school fields, baseball fields.
If we identified that Sickle High School was indeed the worst lighted field among our high school fields, then by all means, let's start there. It changes the game to know that. But because right now it's being presented as just a squeaky wheel among my constituency, it's viewed that way.
So, I mean, of course it's a board, but I could see at least how long it would take to get that. I could do it in a week or something, get it done in a week. Perhaps we would know then what shape everything is in.
And Mr. Chairman, I would even support tomorrow evening voting in favor of replacing the worst lighted field. And then the action is there, and as soon as it is identified as the worst lighted field, then the purchase order can be written.
We may well have to have an amendment before we can write that purchase order. That depends on the dollar level and all that, because that's where we are in the maintenance budget, that's a fairly substantial expenditure. So,
all right, Mr. Holliday, I didn't understand that exactly. Say that again.
If we wanted to pass a motion tomorrow night and take action tomorrow night on an agenda item, then we could pass a motion to whichever field is identified by our maintenance department to be the worst lit field, then that field is approved. If it turns that it is indeed Sickle High School, then by all means, let's get it fixed.
I guess I don't have a problem with that. I mean, I guess the problem I've got is and back to the coach I mentioned earlier, it wasn't a Sickle coach. It was another high school coach, one of the opposing. But I guess these other schools have got problems, why haven't they brought it to us? I mean, I'm just throwing that out there. I'll be straightforward with you. I haven't got all I've got to go on is what I hear here. I haven't attended a baseball game at Sickle High School, so all I've got to go on is what Mr. Jordan said, what Mr. Clardy, and what that other coach told me. So, I mean, but if other schools got problems, I think somewhere down the road we need to fix it. But I think as of right now, the only one we know has got a problem is Sickle. That's just my input.
I don't know how I look at, well, not just me, obviously, but how I'm going to look at the Sickle coach and principal and say, well, now we're going to test all the fields. Now, we're going to test everybody. Football, softball, baseball, whatever's out there, which is, I don't know, a couple of dozen fields. And then we're going to put them in order, and we're going to fix the worst one first. And it may not be you. And I'm sitting here and telling you that I know it's them. And we're going to delay them another week or 10 days or whatever. I'm only one person, so you all can decide tomorrow night what you want to do.
I'm just trying to reflect the charge that we have for equity toward all of our schools.
Well, equality is one of those things that's absolutely wonderful. We ought to just work ourselves silly to try to get there. But we're not going to get there, ever. And I'm just not talking about us, I'm just talking in general. But if he's identified a problem, we've tested it twice, it's there, we know it, we've discussed it to probably, some of you are sick to death of it, and I'm getting there. I think, by the way, what something you said was, and Ms. Moore said it, and Mr. Hodges said it, and maybe we need to test all our fields, maybe we need to do that, and we could put them in order. We can fix Sickle first. They're the ones that do. And then we can put them in order after that, worst first, if any of them fall there. Mr. Hodge makes a good point about people not coming to us and saying anything about it, and that they have a problem. Maybe they do, we don't know. Test them all, fix the worst, the next worst. If that be the what the board wants to do. Difficult, knotty problem. I'll agree in this. I think, too, we can say that this problem started when Sickle Field was built. I think we can pretty much say that. And for whatever reason, I wasn't here, and neither were any of y'all, I don't guess. I don't know, but I don't think so. But anyway, the problem, as problems always do, it has come home to roost, and we happen to be the ones sitting it. Mr. Odom has left for Health and Ed. I don't know how many of you are going. I know Mr. Clardy is. Mr. Savick has left. Is there anything else that we need to discuss tonight? And boy, do I appreciate your input and your help on some of these problems. If there's nothing else tonight, tomorrow night, 5 o'clock, and I will see you at that time. We are adjourned. Thank you.